6 months living in Times Square in New York. Now, this is my parents. My dad is now 90 years old. My mom lived on a fruit farm for the first 12 years of her life, where the nearest neighbor was across the river. I told you the story about her having to row across the river to go to school. My dad lived in the house, was born in the house that I was raised in. Our nearest neighbor was half a mile away. They were hicks from the sticks, no doubt about it. And they lived in New York City on Times Square. They were half a block off of Times Square. You know, the big Toys R Us that used to be there? They were right across the street from that. You see the ABC studio when they show up from outside? They show the people standing around. They were right behind that, the next building back, for 6 months. And it was called the Lambs Club. The Lambs Club is where the musical Oklahoma was written. The Lambs Club was where all sorts of theater happened. And it was a Nazarene church at this time. They had a closet that street preachers would keep their soapboxes in, basically. And they would come in, the street preachers would come in, get their box, go out onto Times Square, and stand on the corner and preach at the top of their lungs. We think that's what evangelism is. We think, I was encouraged to go through, and I didn't do it, just so you know, a program to teach you how to evangelize. And evangelize in that program was, you go up to a stranger on the street and said, "You're going to heaven or hell." And what stranger in the right mind would answer you? Unless they were on the way to heaven. And you were supposed to be asking them questions so that they would be sobbing and crying on the street corner because of all the sin in their life. We think that's what evangelism is. Do you know what evangelism is? Evangelism is living your life in such a way that people will say, "Why are you different?" We are supposed to evangelize every day in every way. And if we have to, use words. We have to have the log out of our own eye so that people can see Jesus in our lives. Because if we say, "You need Jesus," but we act like the world, they're going to say, "Yeah, right, Jesus hasn't done anything to your life. What's he going to do to my life?" We have to have our relationship so grounded and close to God that he shines through all of our cracks and people can see him. That's evangelism. We cannot help somebody get their life straight if ours isn't straight. We can't help somebody with a speck in their eye when we have the log in our eye. We have to get our life right with God. And it seems like we could live with these tiny words. Let me read it to you, and I'll tell you who said it. "I dislike your speaking of yourselves as though you are the only ones who know and taught the gospel. But what I most dislike is your littleness of love, or lack of love. Your want, which is lack of union, your lack of meekness, your lack of gentleness, your lack of long-suffering, your impatience of contradiction," which means getting upset because somebody doesn't agree with you. I'll translate this all for you. You're counting every person your enemy that disagrees or admonishes you in love. Your bigotry and narrowness of spirit, living in a manner only those that love you do you like. Of all who do not agree with you, in a word, you're divisive spirit. So you love only those that agree with you, you disagree and hate those that disagree with you. We hear that today. If you loved me, you would let me. love me because you disagree with me. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, tell you who wrote that. John Wesley wrote that to the, he wrote that to the Perfectionists in London, November 2nd, 1762. Does that describe today? It does describe today. Not just out in the world, it describes it in the church too. Because if somebody disagrees with us, we don't talk to them anymore. Or we talk about them behind their back. And if they disagree with us, well, obviously they're our enemy. And we start thinking that way. And we can benefit what John Wesley said. Jesus said, hypocrite. First get your life right with God. Then worry about everybody else's life. Verse 6 is this: don't waste what is holy on people who are unholy. Don't throw your pearls to pigs. They will trample the pearls, then turn and attack you. What does that say? Don't waste what is holy on people who are unholy. And the first thing that jumps in our mind is, well, we should be talking to all those people out there because they're all evil. What he's saying is, stop arguing. Stop arguing religion. Stop arguing politics. Stop arguing. It's a waste of your time. Do you know how I know? Because when you argue with somebody, you both walk away saying, that person's an idiot. And neither one of us changed. Stop arguing is what he's saying. And there are people that will try to get you, and it's happened here to me. About the second year I was here, there was a visitor in the church, and I'm standing outside, and as he's going out of church, he tries to get in an argument with me about theology, because our theology as Nazarenes wasn't perfect. And the only way that we'd be perfect is if we followed his theology. And he wanted to get into it with me right out there on the street. And I said, I'm not. He's still in the area, I think. But he didn't come back to here. And it was just going to be a waste of my time and his time if we got into an argument. Jesus says, don't waste your time on arguing. It's a waste of time. And there is no way that I can convince somebody to change their religion with my words. I can only change their religion with my actions. And what we have to do is not condemn them to hell, because everybody deserves, well, nobody deserves a relationship with Jesus, but everybody gets the opportunity to have a relationship with Jesus. What he's saying is, back off and go where Jesus is at work. Go to where Jesus is. Have your life so close with God that you will go to where Jesus is. And do what Jesus is doing, because we can get into the business of doing God's work and get so busy doing God's work we forget God. We get so busy in working for God that we forget being with God. We're supposed to be with God wherever he is. And sometimes he's not where we are working, but he's over there, and we need to go over there and be with him. And just maybe when we back off, and I told you about my friend in Oak Ridge who is gay. He is my friend. And we became good friends. And I asked him if I could have a men's Bible study in the back. He had a convenience store with a little restaurant. And I said, can I have a men's Bible study here, a prayer time? He said, are you going to try to save me? I said, I can't save you, only Jesus can save you. And after being in his store every week argue with them. And just maybe they will eventually be ready to hear about Jesus as we pray for them. Just maybe. Banging your head against the wall when you hurt your head. Backing up and praying and let Jesus do the work. Things change. And lives change. So here are God's house rules. Again, just so that you know. I wrote them down. They're right here. Number one, don't worry. We start worrying and start telling God how we're supposed to do things. Number one, God's house rule. Don't worry. I got this. He's saying, have faith. I got this. And you know God He's got it because He is God and knows what's happening. The second one is seek God. This means forgiveness for you, His grace, and us repenting. The difference between repenting and forgiveness, seeking forgiveness, is this. God forgives us, but we might keep doing it. Repenting means stop doing it, turn 180 degrees, walk away from that sin, and walk to God. So not only seek forgiveness and grace, repenting. Number three is don't condemn others. Earlier in Matthew, Jesus said, if you call somebody an idiot, you're in trouble. And I know it's real easy to call people an idiot. It just is. Which means it's more difficult to be nice to them and not call them idiots. And a lot of times when we call people an idiot, we're just saying, you're not worth it. It's that judgment thing. Don't condemn others. Don't judge them to hell. Because when you get to heaven, you'll be surprised at the people that are there. And they'll be surprised if you're there too. Don't be surprised when you see Dr. Darwin in heaven. Don't be surprised when you see serial killers in heaven. Don't be surprised when you see the baddest of the bad in heaven, because everybody has the opportunity to accept Jesus as their Lord and Savior. Rule number 4 is get your life in order with God. In other words, humble yourself. Humble yourself. Set the pride aside and let God work in your life. Number 5, look for opportunities to help others. Once your life is in order, and by the way, you're not going to be perfect until the minute that you die. But once you've got the log out of your eye and God's working through you and you're helping yourself, you will have opportunities to help others. 2 Corinthians chapter 1 says, we go through things so that we can help other people through those things by showing them how God has worked in our lives. We get to do that. So look for opportunities to help others. And number 6 is, don't waste your time trying to do God's work on your own. Do God's work with God. And there's an order to it. You have to know God. And you have to pray to God. And you have to have your life in order so that you can do God's work and not your own work. It's like the little boy in VBS that was beating up another boy because the other boy wanted to leave, and he's beating him up saying, he needs Jesus. He needs to stay here. That's one boy trying to do God's work and beating it into another boy. That's not what we're called to do. Don't waste your time doing that. Waste your time, and it's not a waste of time, but spend your time seeking God, making sure your life's right, living in such a way that the world can see God through you. Don't worry, because God's there, and God has everything under control, even if you don't like the way He's doing it. He's got it under control. And sometimes it's painful for us, but sometimes it's good for us. So here's my questions for you. Where are you in these rules of God's? Do you worry? Do you seek God? Do you condemn others? Have you got your life in order? Do you look for opportunities to help others? Do you waste your time? Which one of these do you need to remember and start doing? Or work on doing it better? Do you have all 6 of these mastered? And here's a question for you. Why do we have to follow God's rules? I'll give you the old parent answer. Because God said so. Not only does he say so, he explains to us that they're very important because God knows all there is and he sees all. He knows what has happened yesterday. He knows what's happening today. He knows what's going to happen tomorrow, and he knows what he's doing. He can get us through this life. We will have bumps and bruises because, remember that old hymn, mold me and make me? That hurts, by the way. Lynn has a sister that does pottery. Do you know what you have to do with the clay before you put it on the wheel? Beat it to death. You slam it on the table, you punch it, you push on it, you slam it on the table some more, and all the rocks and sticks come out of it, all the air bubbles come out of it, then it's able to be made into something. And when we say mold me and make me, it's not comfortable, but that's what he's doing, getting the impurities out so that we can be used for him. And because God knows the rules, it means he knows the right way that things are supposed to be done. He knows the right way to do things so that our relationship with him grows and turns into something that is glorious and glorifies him and brings others into a relationship with him as well. That's why we follow God's rules. Not just so that life is easy, because it won't be if we follow the rules, but so that others can know God and come to know him. The end of Matthew wasn't a suggestion when he said, go and make disciples. It was a command. And the way for us to go and make disciples is to have our relationship right with God. When I was first out of college, or out of high school, I went to Phoenix, Arizona, because I didn't want to go into ministry, so I was going to go down there and go to school and design computers. I got a job at a curtain vacuum place. I was a terrible salesman. Why? Because I didn't know how to vacuum, and I didn't know how a curtain vacuum cleaner worked. And we can't lead people to Jesus if we don't know Jesus and how he works. So we've got to get us together first so that other people can get to know Jesus too. And it's not you working, it's you surrendering that gets us right with God. It's us saying, God, I screwed it up. Please forgive me. Please make it right somehow. And please, Lord, work on me. And he will. So where are you in this? Are you willing to follow God's rules? And I should say, don't be too hard on yourself. You're only human. You can't fix everything. Let God fix it. So let's stand together and let me pray. And while I pray, you pray. If you need to have a good conversation with God about these 6 things, have it. They're God's rules. Just like the laws of physics, they can't be broken. This is what we have to do. Let's pray. Lord, thank you for your grace. Thank you that you have laid out in our lives what we should do and how we should do it. And thank you that you have enough grace to forgive us again and again. Please help us, Lord, to have that grace for others, and help us not to give up on ourselves, but to keep coming back to you. our faith so that our worries decrease. And please increase our faith in you as we grow closer to you. Please don't let us give up, Lord. In your name I pray. Amen. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of it. Thank you for the opportunities that God is providing you and you're going to step in. As scary as exciting as it might be, thank you for having the faith in God to step into those. asking you to do, the way He's asking you to do it. It'll be great. This week, while you're out there, look for God and the opportunities that He has for you. Look for and watch for the words that come out of your mouth and see if they're coming from God or from you. Be willing to change if you need to. But have a great week this week. It'll be a great week. And be ready for Father's Day next week. Be ready for a baptism. And be sure to sign up for the party and a concert in the park, which is only 4 weeks away. So be sure to do that. And have a great week. Thank you for being